All right, so what if I told you the blueprint for building a massive, lasting legacy wasn't found in some business school, but in a religious faith? It's a pretty wild idea, right? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive into a really fascinating argument from our source material that looks at exactly that, the intersection of faith, influence, and what it calls a mindset that's literally engineered for success. So this all boils down to one central question our source is asking. Why are some of the world's most successful people, we're talking serious players here, quietly taking an interest in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which you probably know as the LDS Church? The source suggests the answer has nothing to do with celebrity pastors or flashy services. Nope, it's about something else, something hidden, a kind of architecture for discipline, growth, and a really, really long-term vision. Okay, so before we really dive in, the source material makes a point of saying, hey, let's set aside any stereotypes you might have. Our goal here isn't to judge or convert anyone. We're just going to unpack the arguments as they're presented, to try and understand the perspective it offers on why this faith seems to click with a certain kind of high achiever. All right, let's get into the first big idea from our source material, which is all about this unique blend of belief and, well, really practical application. So the argument here is that this is way more than just a set of beliefs you think about on a Sunday. It's a whole lifestyle, one that's basically optimized for responsibility, designed for the long haul, like real longevity, and built around this philosophy of constant self-improvement. It's about thinking in generations, not just in moments. Okay, so how does that actually play out in real life? Well, the first layer of the argument is all about the individual's mindset, specifically how members are taught to think about wealth and success. And this is where things get really interesting, because it highlights a huge contrast. The source claims that while a lot of traditions kind of treat wealth as a spiritual problem, something you should feel guilty about or apologize for, the LDS worldview completely reframes it. Wealth isn't a sin, it's a stewardship. Prosperity isn't some worldly distraction, it's a sacred assignment. Yeah, this quote from the source just nails it. It perfectly sums up the argument. Instead of weighing success down with guilt, the faith turns it into a mission, into a calling. It's basically telling the high achiever, hey, you're not cursed with having too much, you're entrusted with more than most. So you've got this individual mindset, right? From there, the source zooms out to look at the second layer, the whole cultural and social structure that's built to support this kind of growth-oriented worldview. The source talks about this culture of really deep discipline by getting rid of what it calls engineered self-destruction, things like alcohol, tobacco, gambling. It creates this incredibly stable, sober environment. I mean, think about it. In a world that runs on impulse and chaos, this culture is designed to run on intention. It creates a space where you can actually pursue long-term goals without all the usual noise and distractions. And this is a big one. This culture has a totally different relationship with ambition. The source argues that in a lot of cultures, ambition is kind of looked at with suspicion, right? Like you're getting too big for your britches. But in the LDS framework, ambition is seen as a calling. Self-improvement isn't just a weekend hobby, it's a moral obligation. Your potential isn't just about you, it's cosmic. In a way, personal growth itself becomes a form of worship. And check out this line, because the source says this is what's absolutely electrifying to high achievers. The faith doesn't just tolerate ambition, it sanctifies it. I mean, imagine you're someone who has spent your entire life striving and building. Hearing a message that says your drive isn't a character flaw, it's your divine purpose, that's powerful. And this isn't just some abstract idea either. The source describes the church as a practical incubator of leadership. Seriously, from the time they're kids, members are taught how to give talks, how to lead, how to organize, so by the time they're adults, they've already rotated through tons of different management and organizational roles. It's not a religion where you just sit back and listen, it's a training ground for becoming capable. Okay, so all this leadership training naturally feeds right into the next big concept from the source, the idea that the community itself acts as this incredibly powerful functional network. And this is such a powerful metaphor from the text. Most religions offer fellowship, social connection, and that's great, it's valuable, but infrastructure? That's a whole other level. That implies a reliable, resilient system of support, something you can actually build on. So what does that infrastructure actually look like in practice? Well, according to the source, it's a global network where trust is the default currency. It acts as an economic safety net and a professional ecosystem where referrals and mentorships just flow freely. The source even calls it an invisible passport, something that gives you instant belonging and support no matter where you are in the world. All right, so we've looked at the individual and the community. Now let's zoom out one more time to the final layer of the argument, the long-term institutional vision of the church itself. And the core idea here is really all about perspective. I mean, the source argues that while most organizations are busy planning for the next quarter or the next election cycle, the LDS Church is planning for the next century. They're making decisions today for people who haven't even been born yet. That's a different game entirely. Just look at the examples the source gives. We're talking about universities designed to produce leaders for generations to come, genealogy systems that are these vast, incredible archives connecting the past, present, and future, and the temples. They're described not just as buildings, but as monuments to endurance, built out of stone and steel, meant to last for hundreds of years. And this quote really connects that long-term thinking to the mindset of people who build dynasties. Look, short-term success can be luck, right? Anyone can get lucky. But according to the source, century-long stability, that isn't luck. That's strategy. That's vision. And that's the kind of thinking that clicks with people who want to build a legacy that will outlive them. And holding all of this together is what the source calls just remarkable financial discipline. It describes an institution that operates like a super calm, methodical corporation. It prioritizes low debt, careful spending, and building up massive reserves for stability. The focus is always on quiet stewardship, not on loud, flashy spectacle. Okay, so we've looked at the mindset, the culture, and the institution. Let's bring all these pieces together now and look at the source's final conclusion. What the text argues is that when you combine all these elements, the mindset of stewardship, the culture of discipline, the community that acts like infrastructure, and that long-term vision of legacy, you get something that's more than just a religion. The source calls it an architecture of success. And what fuels this entire architecture? According to the source, it's a theology of what it calls radical optimism. It's this audacious belief that human beings aren't just flawed sinners. They're creators in training. They're souls with actual divine potential. It's a worldview that doesn't just tolerate greatness, it literally expects it. And so that brings us to the end, with this final, really provocative question taken directly from the source material. It kind of leaves us to chew on the arguments we've just unpacked, about a system that it claims is uniquely built for stability, growth, and true lasting influence. Definitely a fascinating perspective to think about.